For those of us who live and breathe crypto, Bitwise is a name you want to know. They've been in the game since 2017 and now manage over 10 billion in crypto assets across 30 different solutions. Index funds, Bitcoin and crypto, equity ETFs, on-chain solutions, you name it, Bitwise does it. But here's what I really recommend checking out. Their weekly CIO memo. Every week, CIO Matt Hogan breaks down what's happening in crypto, like why Bitcoin's up or down, what the big institutions are doing, and the stories flying under the radar. It's sharp, it's free, and honestly, it's one of the best reads in crypto. Find it at bitwiseinvestments.com/CIO memo. Again, bitwiseinvestments.com/CIO memo.
Binance is the world's #1 crypto exchange. Over 275 million users already trust their world-class security. Binance makes starting crypto as simple as it should be. Whether learning about crypto on Binance Academy or browsing hundreds of assets and viewing your newly created portfolio in a clear, easy-to-track dashboard, Binance helps you go at your own pace. For the hardcore traders, Binance Pro opens a industry-leading services for trading professionals with fully bespoke trading products along with a suite of white glove services for VIP and institutional clients. Need support? 24/7 customer service is on hand whenever you need it. And with some of the lowest fees and deepest liquidity in the market, it's no surprise over 285 million users trust Binance for everything crypto. Download Binance today and get started in minutes. Binance is not available in certain countries, including the US. Check its terms for more.
Hello again for another episode of REKT Vision. I've just flown back from Singapore. Big week for me, seeing lots of different people in crypto, and we've come back and Bitcoin is a couple of percentage points away from all-time high. Definitely one of the better Fridays we've had on this show. Generally, we are dumping at this point. This week, we have Sergito come back. Obviously, Real Vision viewers will know him for a long time, but awesome to have you back, man. Obviously, leading the efforts at Meebits at the moment. How are you doing?
Thanks, man. Always exciting to be back on Real Vision. I'm good. It's been a great week.
It has been. It has been. I think last week we were on this show and things weren't looking as good, really. Like it felt like after the comments from Jerome Powell, it was a little bit iffy about the next steps. And we did kind of go all the way down to, well, like 108, 109K, I think it was. But then ripped straight back. We've seen Bitcoin dominant as you go higher in this point, so it's headed back up towards kind of 60%. But ETH has had a very strong bounce. BNB just keeps on hitting all-time highs at the moment, which is kind of a crazy move. It definitely feels like the sentiment is back. There's some talk about stimulus checks again over the last 48 hours, which I think has been getting people very bullish as well. What are you thinking about the market here?
I mean, I think, without getting into politics, obviously policy is a part of macro. And to your point about the stimulus checks, if you go back to 20 and 21 when those came out, and obviously I think the amounts being discussed today are like $2,000 versus back then it was like $20,000. But the fact is that those tariffs funds are going to be recycled back into people's pockets, and even though those tariffs are technically taxes. The fact that people are going to get what they think is free money or potentially get free money, we know where that's going to end up. It's going to end up in betting markets, crypto, sneakers, Pokemon cards, potentially real estate again. And that's what I think the market's sniffing out, moving higher here over the last few days.
Yeah, Trump was pretty explicit about it, it seems like, over the last 40 hours. Basically tweeted out that they're going to try and outgrow the deficit, which I don't know. That definitely wasn't what he was talking about before. It felt like, well, at least it was, but there were still some fiscal conservative elements to what he was saying. Now it feels like the fiscal conservative elements are out the window. We're just going to pump whatever we save back to people's wallets, and people know the playbook for crypto. This is very much what millennials / Gen X, Gen Z will spend their money on. So we kind of have this, I would say, pump in anticipation of maybe that happening. It's still been L1s kind of leading the charge. We had some very, very strong inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs this week. We had, I think, about $2.5 billion of inflows just over the last 4 days. So Bitcoin dominance has gone higher. Before that, it was, altcoins were having a little bit of a shine. BNB has definitely been the strongest L1. It feels like that is, I think there's some anticipation, obviously, it's going to get a pardon, that Binance may be regaining its key position in maybe the US and maybe some other markets. And they are pushing a number of very strong native protocols. We saw Asta is still hanging out around 20 billion. And then even you saw some of the memes move this week. A meme called 4, which is the famous CZ meme, hit, I think, around 150 million. What's your view on BNB? Is this, we previously see BNB seasons and they never really last, but this one feels like it might be slightly different.
Yeah, the way I look at Binance right now, if you go back the last 6 months, where you had kind of like KOLs for each L1, right? Obviously, Michael Saylor has been the Bitcoin king and really the evangelist for a while. And then we went to a couple of Ether ones, obviously Joe and Tom Lee. And then we moved on to Solana with Kyle. You look at Binance and CZ. I mean, there's no bigger crypto figure today that has spanned the cycles like CZ has. I mean, his lore is insane. And whether you like him or not, whether you agree with what happened at Binance or not, the reality is he carries like such a big name and weight, even longer than Michael Saylor. And I think really what we're seeing is that ZZ being the main KOL, obviously Asia, you just came back from Singapore. I'd love to hear how that was, but just from looking at the pictures and stuff, it seems like every event is packed. People are really excited for crypto there. And then you throw the gas on the fire, which is the US being really, really, really friendly to all kinds of crypto, where it really seems we went from, kind of almost killing crypto a couple of years ago to now just embracing everything and anything, with really bullish headlines coming out of regulators, agencies really not just letting crypto run, but trying to integrate it into all kinds of different markets and aspects. I think we had the CFTC overnight say that they were going to let 24-hour futures trade on crypto stuff. Obviously, the ETFs are now pretty much just registered and they exist. Will that bring flows into the ETFs? I don't know. That's for another discussion. But the fact that you have the combination of, the biggest KOL in the space being just crowned again, and then this really, really positive environment in the US, which probably is the biggest market for consumer discretionary investments, if that's a term. That's what gets us to where we are right now with not just BNB, but the rest of the big L1s.
I like that term, consumer discretionary investments. You may not get your money back. So,
right.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Yeah, crypto is definitely in that sort of world. And if it wasn't obvious before, it does feel like the gloves are off for crypto this week. We saw the SEC looks like, the government is shut down right now. So some of these ETFs may be delayed, but it looks like you're going to get a number of L1 ETFs in the near term. There's a lot of very positive comments about the SEC and the CFTC working to basically help promote tokenization and broader ability for financial institutions, maybe in states, to hold crypto, even get licenses. There was some talk about certain states just allowing crypto firms to operate without licenses, various money licenses. So it just feels like the gloves are off, and crypto is definitely winning in the US. I was there in Singapore this week. I missed today and yesterday at the conference, but I think people said this a little bit for the Bitcoin Vegas conference this year, but this just felt like a very corporate conference. I think Token 2049 is always a little bit like that, but it was very much like TradFi was coming in, and it felt more like a traditional finance conference that I was maybe at before. A lot more finance guys in suits with a very different sort of flavor. There was the like that core crypto Twitter element, and you knew some people there, but I met people that 40%, 50% of people you met, I didn't even know they were in crypto. Do you know what I mean? Like this is the moment, because crypto is now touching so many different things and the gloves are off with, with payments, with tokenization, with anything. It's now starting to touch realms that isn't probably even aware that this core crypto community exists, and we're not aware they exist either. So it's weird. Like there's just like two lanes of crypto at the moment, and we feel it. At times, like the sentiment can be terrible on CT, and the market can be going up, and similarly, it can be horrific. It can be really good on CT, and the market can be going down. It's because there's just two very different elements, I think, to what's going on in crypto at the moment. So I think that's what crypto conferences are going to be about. I feel like for the next few years, this whole like cypherpunk mentality, it's not dead, but it's sharing the room with stablecoin issuers now, and it's a very different sort of feel to a conference.
I lived it in 21. So as you were saying this, right, I was thinking of my first days in crypto back in 21, working at Fireblocks, talking to a bunch of people in suits. And yeah, there was no cyberpunk anything. It was just, TradFi people coming in. So for me, it just fits kind of like where we are in the cycle. 4 years later, obviously, I think, we obviously are entering that banana zone, and those flows for people that don't really care too much about maybe the underlying original values or don't know who crypto Twitter is, are those flows that we actually need to take us to that next level when it comes to not just price performance, but potentially integrating with other industries and so on. So actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking, man, this literally could have been the same answer back in 21. Coming back, I remember my first big crypto conference as a Fireblocks teammate was Money 2020 in Las Vegas. And you walked, and this is a fintech conference, right? And you walked in, and first of all, you landed in Vegas, and it was everything: airport, cabs, all the billboards were Galaxy, BitGo, you name it, Fireblocks. And you walked into the conference, the first thing you saw was this gigantic Bitcoin sign in the BitGo booth. That changed by the next year. That was not longer the case. And I think, yeah, so 4 years later, here we are again, big conferences, big TradFi money coming in. I think it's great. I think it's actually super positive, and maybe in 2 years that will not be the case again, but it definitely tracks with the cycle.
Yeah, and it feels as though you're kind of building their own banking layer at the moment as well. We spoke about Plasma last week, which is kind of not had the best week, but the World Liberty Financial guys were there. There's talk about Tether backing other of these sort of like neobanks that are coming out, and it feels like this is the new product where it's like what these fintech firms maybe used to be a few years ago, like Revolut when they came out. It feels as though crypto companies are going to come in and try and take over that sort of world, this like neobank world, which was very popular as a theme out in Singapore. Interestingly, there was a little bit of a fight back from the I don't know, some of the original values of crypto this week. The best performing altcoin was Zcash. ZEC is the ticker, which is kind of an OG privacy coin chain, which occasionally people get very bullish about, alongside things like Monero. Although I think Monero just faced like a 51% attack or something like that. So Zcash hits, I think, 2 billion this week. It's 3-year highs, and suddenly a lot of Zcash bulls kind of came out on the timeline being like, oh yeah, I hold this is going to the moon. What do you think of this one? Like, there's been a lot of talk about the long-term roadmap for some of these chains will add privacy, but anyone that's used crypto before knows that you kind of give up a little bit of that. Yeah, your wallet hasn't got your name attached to it, but with things like Arkham and various other block explorer sites, it's becoming easier to work out what people are doing on chain, and you don't maybe have as much privacy as you'd like. So some of these privacy chains are suddenly becoming a bit more in vogue as we kind of go back towards this, crypto is just going to replace the dollar, but everyone's going to have to do KYC. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, right? 3-year highs. That just sounds, again, we're entering that last stage of the cycle. If you go to the 5-year chart, there you go. Right? Like right there. I think that's the best picture for not just this, but what we're just talking about, the conferences and so on. Listen, all these coins, obviously, there's a lot of investors that have had them for a long time. I think those types of investors, and going back to the CZ comments, right? They've been around the cycles. I think they understand it. They understand the narratives. they understand a lot of the reflexivity that gets priced into these types of coins. And to me, that's what we're seeing. So it's more so a signal and a sign rather than anything else. And yeah, privacy is kind of something that you give up today when you're interacting with traditional L1s and other chains. But that will change. You remember 2 years ago in the bear market, like, zero knowledge and all that stuff was really the meta for privacy. But as things pump, we've seen it over and over with a lot of different metas. People don't care to pay fees when things are going much higher. It happened with NFT royalties. They didn't care when things were going higher, paying 10% away. As soon as things turn around, people are like, I'm paying fees. Privacy people don't really care about so much when they're making money, and it's not until later when like it really restricts them in their day-to-day that they start caring about. So for me, this is more a signal of my market cycle and stage, rather than a huge philosophical change from participants that now really want to keep their transaction private. You can kind of do that today with like exchange accounts and so on. Definitely, there's a lot of funds that we saw at Fireblocks, a lot of funds that had a lot of different accounts and moved a lot of funds. It's not fun to do it, but there's way to be private for the bigger pools of money. And then for the retail person, again, I don't think people really care as much, because otherwise all these chains that exist today that do not give you any privacy would not really have had the success that they've had.
Yeah, look, I think it's fair. I think this is an interesting one. I do think that the privacy element is going to become more valuable again as TradFi comes in, because a lot of these exchanges and banks and neobanks, and if they're going to start accepting crypto, they're going to enforce this sort of stuff. So I do think I'm kind of bullish on people liking privacy again.
I disagree. If you look at look, we're moving value through the internet, right? So that started with media. If you look at the early days of social media with MySpace, right? It was like you had your stuff private. Facebook was private. And then suddenly out of nowhere, people just really went full on voyeuristic. And now, some of the biggest names in the world, most famous people. I mean, there's influencers that I don't know, but like I see them pop up because like DJs go and like there's a guy, Kai something. Again, I'm not into that scene, but like, yeah, he's like, and why he literally has people in his shower. I mean, talk to me about privacy. And everybody's trying to share things to gather attention. And so I think the human nature is pushing us toward more of like financial voyeurism. You see it today. People want to see who made money, who's holding what. Well, most people, I don't want people knowing my stuff.
What if the government sees it though? Is that the voyeur you want in this world? I feel
you just flew through an airport. You know how many different cameras took your picture?
Hey, I'm not the one buying Zcash. I'm just saying.
I know. I'm just saying, like it's. Listen, principle wise, I think privacy is a human right, and we should really, really strive towards it. Don't get me wrong. Just from personal experience, both in Mexico and here in the U.S., like privacy is super important. To your point, like government and the ability to like legally extort violence on somebody. That's what government can do. It's like the only participant in the society that can do that without consequences. It's important to have privacy. But if I'm really looking at these things, I realize that, hey, people, again, don't really care if you can make money on it, if it makes your life a lot easier, right? If you go to the airport and you can just scan your face and walk right onto the plane, which happens already, people are going to be okay with that. And the average person down the street is not thinking about privacy. On the other hand, they're thinking of how many likes can they get on their picture, or how many different angles can they pose that will make them, get a few followers. That is completely the opposite.
I don't know. I think it's which way, Western man. You have that, and then you have the people that are like disaster planning, like they don't want the government.
Which society mocks them. Like the preppers, they might be right. They might be right, but
you're either a streamer or you've got a bunker somewhere.
Right.
And this feels like for the bunkers. I thought it was interesting that like Mert, who's like one of the biggest Solana figureheads, you would say, thinks that this is going to go to $10 billion in the next year. He said, I think this is going to flip a bunch of coins that are around 10 billion.
It might.
I was surprised about that. I know you're not a big Solana guy, but I was.
Hey, I built my last startup in Solana. It didn't really work out, but that was not Solana's fault. That was my fault because I can't code for shit. But listen, we saw 21 and 17 before that, and 13, right? Like when the reflexivity in crypto is just the most we've ever seen. You used to trade high yield credit, and even that did not exhibit this level of reflexivity that we see here today. And I think that just really removed like the number where it's capped. Can it be 10? Can it be 20? Can it be 50? Can it be 100? I don't know. I mean, we still have JPEGs that are worth, look at punks, they're worth $200,000 each, right? And it's what a project that's 8 years old that was free. So that level of being able to create not just wealth, but just value, if you want to call it that, just financial value. Look at Dodge, right? Like there's really has not been anything in that regard. There's been a lot of other meme coins that have come since, and it still has a very significant market cap. So yeah, for me, again, it's more flows and cycles and human psychology rather than really trying to get super cute about like the tech and so on. And I think the last 4 years have made me more of that, because I used to be more like, well, like the technology and like let's think about all these other things. In reality, it's just flows. Flows really dominate in here, and they dominate in stocks, for example. The same thing, you see it with like the big stocks and so on. So I think for somebody that's looking for like a trade, that doesn't want to get too like bothered about the philosophy of like the cypherpunk ethos or anything like that, yeah, you pick the fastest horse, the one that has the most attention, like for example BNB recently. Last year was Solana, earlier this year, like what the spring was Ether with all the DATs. And you write it, and I think we're going to see a lot of that just liquidity cycle as more liquidity comes in from the TradFi types, and then that waterfall that we saw in 21, 22 that ended up pumping, JPEGs and all kinds of things. I'm positioning for a repeat of that myself.
Well, I think one of the trades of the cycle, as you kind of point out, was BNB, but it was before that was Hyperliquid, and Hyperliquid
right.
has had a very interesting few weeks. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit, because we spoke about it a few times, but Asta's come in and is now seemingly the biggest perp dex, at least by volume. You've also seen other competitors suddenly, this meta of the perp dex is no longer just Hyperliquids. You have Lighter as well that's come in, and Asta, and then a number of other smaller ones all starting to win market share. Hyperliquid, interestingly, released its NFT over the last week. This is something that we've spoken about. We're going to speak about a bit more about what's going on in NFTs, but that was a pretty big airdrop. It feels like there are 4,000 of these, and they're trading around $50,000, $60,000, I think it is right now, maybe even higher after today. Hyperliquid had gone all the way down to around 40, 43, and has rebounded straight way back up to 50. And at this interesting point right now where I think a lot of people like Hyperliquid. They like the ideas about how it's been built. Jeff, who is the founder, seemingly did a bit of a victory lap in Singapore. Everyone was there, showing love for what he's done. And the season 2 looks like it's just ended. So there should be another airdrop of this coming. What do you think here for Hyperliquid? Because I think it's been some people's like, I'm holding this through the next cycle sort of thing, but it's a perp dex primarily, although it does obviously have a chain. And now it's up against a number of pretty, the best competition I think it's seen for a long time. What do you think? Is this going to be a successful vampire, or do you think Hype's going to come back?
I mean, I think you need to look at companies like Hyperliquid in more of a traditional sense, right? It's an actual business, which sometimes that takes away from the speculative nature of the coin, but it's an actual business generating a lot of revenue and using that revenue for buybacks. You can almost apply like an equity valuation model to this and see where that shakes out. Obviously, in crypto, the competition is always going to be super intense. So it's a combination of things. First, like, can they keep the mind share, right? Like, is there somebody that's going to keep Hyperliquid at the very top of that? When you go trade, you immediately think of them. And the second thing is, being able to turn that into revenues and make sure that, I don't think for the perp dexes you need like a boatload of clients. You just need clients that are super active and giving you the most of their volume. because that also starts driving, ARB volume from people that are trying to ARB the different DEXs. So the NFT, I think, was very, very smart from Jeff and the team, being able to reward their, biggest participants again with 5 figures. I mean, something that, and they made millionaires with the airdrop and the believers, and then with the NFT, it's a good development. I think it points in that direction where, like, yeah, I still think it's a good coin to own. Is it the coin that's going to 10x from here? I don't know. And again, that becomes now the question for somebody looking to invest in like this later part of the cycle, right? Am I looking for the 10x, or am I looking for something that's not going to drop 40% in 2 weeks? And that's obviously a personal question from there. But Hyperliquid it looks good to me, but it's almost like more mature investment now than it was back then. And it's a great product. Right? It's awesome, and that always attract competition. I think, for example, Polymarket and Kalshi are like the best parallels when it comes to, if you're just talking about product, right? Polymarket, leader, first one, innovator, and then Kalshi came in and has vampire attacked a lot of its volume. It's on like regulatory arb and so on. I think that pushes the space forward, and it's great for everybody involved. But that potentially does take away from, maybe not like going back to Hyperliquid, it doesn't take away from the value today, but it might take away from that potential for explosive upside down the line.
Yeah, that's it. I think that was at G Money on the show last week, and that's basically what we said. Like, the downside seems limited, but maybe the crazy upsides now, they've got enough competitors that it's going to be less easy, I think, for them to go to like 150. It just feels like it's still going to be one of the better L1 plays out there. So yeah, the biggest gainer has been BNB. It kind of won it back. We were speaking about, again, on this show, though, the other main gainers have been this NFT strategy stuff, which I know for Meebits, you obviously have been aware of for a while. We mentioned it on the show last week, but it's a strategy set up by TokenWorks, which is this company. They originally started with just punks, and it's basically using the trading fees of a coin to buy punks in the open market or buy NFTs in the open market, and which they then relist, which can then get bought. But the token value of the main strategy there, which is punk strategy, hit $150 million this week. This was trading, I think, about 30 to 40 on the show last week, and I think a fraction of that, maybe under 10, a week before that. It's been a crazy run over the last 2 weeks. Like I said before, they expanded the number of NFTs that they're using this sort of vehicle for, one of which is Meebits. So I'm sure you have a pretty strong view on it. What do you think about all of this?
Yeah, so just to put it into context, the way punk strategy works is that, you're right, there's a 10% transaction fee on every buy and sell, kind of like royalties back in 21 for NFTs. 8 of that 10% goes towards buying a punk. That's programmatic. There's no human like making the decision. It's just the protocol accumulates that fee. Once he has enough to buy a floor punk, it goes and executes. 1% of that 10% goes towards TokenWorks, and 1% goes towards their holders. They also launch additional strategies. You're right, Meebits is one of them. And they have 10% fees as well. The fee split's a little different. So 8% again goes towards buying floor NFTs. I'll just talk about their Meep strategy, because that's the one that obviously works with Meebits, and we've really embraced it. 1% of the 10% then goes and buys back Punk strategy. So like it rolls up to Punk strategy. It's almost like the mother coin of this ecosystem, or like the protocol token. Immediately just goes back, buys, and burns with that 1% of fees. And then the other 1% gets paid out as a royalty to the collection owner. And what this does is just a very, very smart way of doing a couple of things. First, it creates a bit of a synthetic exposure to the upside price of the underlying NFT. So for people that want to participate in the ecosystem that maybe do not want to buy like a Meebit, don't want to buy a Punk or like a Pudgy, it's a good way of buying a coin that, if the price of the NFT goes up, should technically go up Why? Because as you said, those NFTs that are purchased by the strategy get listed at 20% higher from where their strategy bought them. And when the floor of the collection moves to that level, they obviously sell in the market. Either somebody buys them, or you can use a loan as well to buy them. But somebody buys that NFT from the portfolio, and the protocol immediately takes that Ether and buys back its own token and burns it. So it becomes deflationary. So it gives you synthetic upside exposure to the price of NFT. But also it's a coin, right? So it trades on market demand, on buying and selling. And given that it has a 10% fee on the way in and the way out, it creates for a little bit more of like a adhesive thing where people are like NFTs, right? People are less willing to trade too much, and they're just more willing to hold. And I think it finds a holder base that's a little bit more aligned with the long-term viability of the project. For us at MeebCo, what we decided to do with our 1% royalty, we decided to go back and buy the NFTs from the protocol. So the Meebits that are held in the Meeb strategy wallet, once we have enough money from the fees, we go and buy them, which is obviously 10% higher from what the protocol bought them. Now, we're obviously paying a little bit premium on the market, but we're super bullish Meebits ourselves. MeebCo owns over 870 Meebits today, and we have a public goal to get to 2,000. So we're happy to use those royalties that we're earning from people trading Meebster in order to support and just promote the flywheel. And we get Meebits in return. And so what that does, it just creates a burn. And last I checked this morning, Meebster is the one token that has the highest burn percentage. We're inching closer to 6% today, which after 2 weeks, I think it's pretty cool. So it's a combination of things, right? Because for Punk Strategy itself, as they roll out more tokens, 1% of all the trading that happens in those tokens for other collections that they've announced, Good Vibes Club, they announced X Copies Max Payne, and a couple of others, Jack Butcher's checks. 1% of all those collections trading, well, the token, it's going to go back to Punkster to buy and burn. So that creates a deflation mechanism for Punk Strategy, which I think is incredible. And then for the collections themselves, right, they're individual strategies. Again, going to Meebster, what happens is that the protocol buys Meebits and lists them 20% higher. It removes those Meebits from circulation from like flippers, or the ones that are always kind of like creating volatility around the floor. Given that this is an algorithmic protocol, it will never turn around and just dump those NFTs into like bits in the market, which is something that we see often in the NFT space. And that synthetically removes selling pressure. Obviously, your cost of that is that it adds a little bit of a thicker floor when the market moves higher. But if the market's really bullish on the NFT, it should have no problem chewing through that. We saw it with Moonbirds today. I mean, yesterday or 2 days ago, when they rallied into the token announcement, and they went from like 3 to 4 Ether, and a lot of the Moonbirds in the treasury were bought, and a lot of the token was burnt. So it's a very interesting innovation. If you think about, a lot of like NFT stuff had felt pretty stale. People that were already in the communities, like, you can't be more in the communities. And I think the playbooks are pretty, I want to say, standard, right? If you want to get the toys, the merch, and so on, it's cool and it's exciting for those that are already here. But maybe it had just completely lost mindshare amongst crypto Twitter. And this is bringing that kind of dynamism back into the NFT space, where you can speculate on the coin itself, and all that speculation goes back into supporting the collection floor, which is something that's incredible. And then if you do Meebster, for example, those royalties are going back towards triggering the flywheel that buys and burns. So it's just, first of all, it's innovation. It's awesome. I think it's important for us to continue to push in that direction when it comes to NFTs, but it's also a fun mechanism. And I think it's long-term very, very positive. So we totally leaned into it with Meebster. I think that our market cap was like 4 million last I checked. For me, you compare it, like, there's people that want airdrops for their tokens, for their collections. And you kind of like flip the script where like, hey, you can buy into a ecosystem token at a very low valuation and participate in the upside while also supporting the collection. And by the way, once somebody decides to exit that position, they're going to pay a royalty not to us directly. I mean, it comes to us, but we immediately put it right back into the ecosystem, and we trigger a buy and burn to make it deflationary. So yeah, it's super, super interesting. Obviously, like anything, right? There's no alchemy in finance. People are going to make money, people are going to lose money. But I think really leaning on innovation, supporting these kinds of initiatives is something that is very valuable long term.
Yeah, look, I think you said a lot of interesting things that I think it's really worked well with collections which haven't had a token yet, because, and like you said, I've slightly lost focus for a while because liquid tokens have been where the majority of the market is focused on. Certain bits of NFTs have done well, but definitely feels like the liquid token has been the winner in terms of token form over this cycle. So it allowed suddenly this sort of liquid token to be attached to different collections. It does feel slightly circular, but definitely to the benefit of the punks. I think that punk strategy coin like definitely gets a lot of the benefit of it. But I do see this now as being like this isn't going away. It feels like the market likes this, and we've seen other attempts at doing this with NFTs, like fractionalized NFTs, and there was, what was it, NFTX back in the past, where it was like a pool of NFTs.
It's still there, actually. Yeah.
So
Yeah, still there.
so this is, but I think this is the best one I've seen in terms of a way to speculate on NFTs in a liquid token form, and it still has some of that community element, which I quite like. So I think this is going to be good for REKT, which obviously I'm one of the co-founders of. I don't think we've lent into it as much because we kind of have our liquid token. So the idea that you would have this and that, or at least associated with us, I think the community can create one themselves, but it was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, very different position. You're right. I think,
Yeah.
and I think Ovi tweeted, right, like liquidity and attention are important to keep in mind. For us, we're like the only top 10 market cap collection other than Miladies, although they've had a couple of meme coins that like their communities have launched without a token. Now that Moonbirds announced theirs. So it just really plays well into what we're trying to build long term, while also giving our community a way to participate in what, like speculation and trading meme coins can be a fun part of the ecosystem. And so it's been really interesting to see new Meebit holders come in because they have had good returns on Meeb strategy, and they're like, all right, well, let me buy a Meebit. And then some of our most active members today on Discord and like some of the group chats are folks who made money through Meeb strategy and decided to reinvest it back in buying a Meebit, which has been another kind of like unintended good consequence, a good benefit for us. But for me, again, going back to the beginning, NFTs have felt stale, right? And obviously, there's been a couple acquisitions, ours, and then Spencer and Orange Cat buying Moonbirds. But the playbooks are still very much the same, right? Buy the project, try to revive it with IP, potentially drop a token. There's, I think, marginal returns when you start trying to do the same things over and over. Not that it won't work. I mean, Moonbirds are up like 10x from when they announced their purchase, and Meebits are up like 2x from when we announced. But I do think that if the ecosystem itself, if the space itself is going to continue to grow and push forward, welcoming innovation like this and adding a bit of a degen nature back into the space, while making sure that the teams that own the collections are supported through royalties, is kind of like a really good triad of things, through elements to throw into a cauldron and see what comes out of it. And that's it's been awesome. It's like awesome to watch. And then Punk strategy will continue to accrue 1% of fees from every strategy that the TokenWorks team launches, and it just goes right back to buy and burn. Different than royalties back in 21, where it went into some founders' Lambo and Ferrari funds.
Yeah, God. There's never going to be a perfect way, but I am genuinely very, very interested in how this goes. Punk strategy is 150 million. If some of the buyback metrics, it looks cheaper than Hyperliquid. Let's put it that way on this sort of. So you could have quite a lot of people come in and buy that, although it still is dependent on volume going through some of the lower collections. But this has definitely been the most interesting thing I think that's happening in NFTs for the last few months.
I would say years, really.
Years, we're going for years, probably. It does. It does like that, and a lot of the OGs are involved. Like, if you look at the top holders of Punk Strategy, it's a lot of people who've been in NFTs for a while. They kind of bought into this concept quite early.
Yeah, a lot of punks who have just been bored, just sitting there. It's been a lot of fun. You're right, and it does create community, which is super interesting to watch. It's a good amalgamation of that kind of like almost like meme coin culture, while at the same time supporting the underlying collection.
I think the other thing I felt like, well, obviously people were talking about NFTs again in Singapore. People were talking about prediction markets, as we've just spoken about. The other thing I felt was just this whole airdrop meta seems to be back. I think ever since Asta kind of came out, it feels like everyone's focused on, right, kind of what we were doing. Well, we do it every year or so. Like, oh, let's start farming projects. And those people were kind of, I mean, they weren't shunned, but it definitely wasn't where like the glamour of crypto was for the last few years. You know, you were really just trading meme coins, and if you were farming stuff, it was like the risk reward just the effort wasn't really worth it. But now suddenly TradFi is back, or crypto meets TradFi, or DeFi is back, and we have these seemingly pretty good airdrop opportunities, particularly around DeFi, CeFi, neobank sort of stuff. Like, have you been looking at any of this sort of stuff at all? It does feel like PerpDex was just the first, but now we're looking at a ton of different things.
I chose poverty as a founder that needs to be 24/7 focused on his company. I'm sure you're on the same boat. It's one of those things that you sacrifice when you decide to pour your heart, soul, and money into one thing. But I've obviously seen it in passing on Twitter, and I think it's great. Every single time that I try to farm something, I'm usually late because I'm like, I narrow into one thing. I'm still waiting for my margin fi airdrop. If anybody on that team wants to finally release that token from the Solana DeFi days, like 2 years ago. But other than that, no, I mean, listen, you're seeing an NFTs too with OpenSea, right? Like, people hated OpenSea. Now they've announced the token. They have like their different chests that you can open, and they have like this whole pirate theme, and people are back trading NFTs. And they're not back trading NFTs because they want to trade NFTs. They're back trading NFTs because they want to get the C token. So it's a smart way of, if you know how to do it without risking too much capital, it's a smart way of trying to make money. It's no different than anything else that other people do, but I personally have not been involved.
Yeah, but if you want to make some money in crypto, it does feel like this is now the thing.
Yeah.
And that normally means you're too late. I agree with you there. Like, suddenly, if we're all doing this now, it's probably too late. But at the same time, I do think that DeFi is having its cycle here again. Like, it's coming back, and all the winners are DeFi, neobanks, and maybe where like CeFi hits DeFi, or where TradFi hits DeFi. Like, we've seen a few different attempts at that, and seen huge airdrops. So I think that I don't think you can really get REKT doing it, but you can just waste a lot of time.
Yeah, that's also, if you're doing it places like Solana, Base, or like chains with low costs, it's not as bad as it was like on Ether mainnet, right? Ethereum mainnet, where the gas fees could have wrecked you. So listen, if it leads to people learning about DeFi and different concepts and really understanding new products, I think it's net positive. But to your point, like, by the time I hear about it, it's probably too late. So yeah, this is probably the top for airdrop farming in this cycle.
Yeah, I do think that perp dexes will probably be the strongest, just because they make the most money, seemingly. Yep.
I mean, Pump Fun has been performing quite well, and I think there's an airdrop coming there too. Obviously, it's a little harder to do Pump Fun without putting capital at risk, given those things just go all over the place. But yeah, it's had quite the run. Similar to Hyperliquid, right? It's a protocol that's actually making money. I think they have buybacks as well. I'm not too familiar with the mechanics of the token, but it's 100% undeniable.
Buybacks now. It's definitely been one of the stronger bounces this week. It's been one of the top performers of the week, back above 7. We were talking about it again last week as a coin to own, just because the buybacks, and it looks undervalued when it comes to at least the buyback multiple.
Yeah.
there was some light bullishness by the founders this week who said like no one's prepared for what's coming. So everyone was like, oh God, like what have they got coming now? And they've got a huge war chest with which they can spend on things. So I still like Pump. And I agree with you, there will be some form of an airdrop. I don't know if it would just be I don't think it'll be if you just own the token though. I think you either have to have been creating or trading meme coins or streaming.
The streaming piece just pisses me off, man. Like, God, it just makes the industry look so bad. Like no comment.
Created one this week.
Like this, man, they're doing stupid shit for attention in the name of a coin. And it's like, imagine the people that learned about Pump Fund from like the stupid stunt on the Hollywood sign. Like, it's not funny. It's not cool. If it was something really, really cool, if it was like something like, I don't know, like artistic, where people are like, holy shit, that was amazing. Like, great. But it's a bunch of people that look like they're homeless, like trying to just get viewers on their stream to make money. For me, I think that's like the wrong thing. But again, who am I to judge?
Laura Shin created one this week, which is like a very well-known crypto journalist. In fact, we were going to do a Real Vision one. Real Vision. Maybe it would just be a REKT Vision.
But again, it's not that the streaming piece is bad. What I'm saying is what has mindshare in that platform right now is like the ridiculous stuff that, again, if you're streaming to just crypto people, right? Like you have people like Clementi and them who do like their little bits that are like kind of funny sometimes, and people within crypto love it. But when you're going out into the world and defacing a public landmark in the name of crypto, and that's what people see, I think it gives us a really, really bad name. And so, yeah, that's like where I cringe a lot. Where I'm like, oh my God, here they go again. What are they doing this time? I think there's better ways to do it, but
yeah, we are the boomers of crypto.
We are the boomers. We're unk status,
so
as the kids call it.
To speak to some of these streamers that are starting to become big. Start calling me unk, which is just a term for you're just old.
I learned that from our intern. Yeah, I think I'm twice her age. I'm twice her age, I think, last night.
She is unk. Yeah, not the best. I like the coin. I'm not a streamer yet on Pump Fund. Obviously, I've used it before a number of times. I do think they've got the right model. And what I do think is Solana will probably continue to dominate meme coin trading. I think so too. I think BNB is still having like a bit of a meme coin season again now, but I would buy into BNB winning on a lot of the DeFi stuff, not necessarily on the meme coin stuff. So I think they've still got a pretty good wall there to get them from.
Which leads me back to like the conversation at the beginning of the episode. Like, what is the trade that you want to put on? Is it TradFi inflows, right? Then it's Ether, Bitcoin. Is it consumer degenning into stuff like meme coins? Then it's Solana, right? Is it just a lot of like trading? Then maybe it's, hyper liquid pump fund. Is it Asian DeFi? Then you go to Binance. That I think you have clear category leaders for the type of trade that you're trying to put on. And it's a lot of opportunities out there when it comes to trying to figure out, what is your view of the world? What is your view of the market over the next 12 months? And you have a bunch of different tools, and then you can definitely overweight, underweight, and start doing really cool things with your portfolio in a way that allows you to express those views and really try to maximize the returns from them.
Well, I can tell you what I've been doing. I definitely moved the bag towards Binance from BNB from when it was about 900, and then and Bitcoin. Those are my two biggest. But I was in Asia and I was in Korea, and then I was in Singapore afterwards. And I think that Asta is going to be a big trade here for CZ. I spoke to a lot of people who are relatively senior there. Like he wants to win this. I think they lost a lot of whales to Hyperliquid after the DOJ investigation and having to do KYC and all this sort of stuff. And this is the olive branch to win them all back, it feels like. And it's DeFi, obviously, he can't really be that involved in Binance, although he's getting increasingly involved in Binance. But my gut is that this is actually a big deal for them, and I wouldn't fade this one. I like Hyperliquid too, but I think they're gonna really go for this one. So Astra has become my third biggest bag, and then Pump afterwards, really.
Nice.
But
yeah, also has a unit bias, right? Like $2 versus $50. The way that people think about investing, I can own a lot more coins in 2 than I can at 50. Could probably help. Yeah, for me, honestly, I think we've spoken about it other times I've been here. I don't really rotate too much. I did obviously buy into the strategy tokens and NFTs.
I missed all that.
Super exciting.
I missed
It's
all
really
of that.
exciting. I still think there's opportunities there. I think if you think of Punk strategy as a perpetual machine, that's going to get fees from volume. Even if people, they don't trade as often, they still get the 1% forever. And then hopefully with Meeb strategy, same thing. We're going to continue pushing there. Outside of that, continue to just love Ether for what it stands for the flows, for the foundation waking up and really being able to push on different narratives. I mean, they just hired somebody to be head of privacy, somebody to be head of AI. They're really leaning into all that stuff. I think Dev Connect in Argentina is going to be a good catalyst. And obviously, like the institutions are building on EVM. Where that fully translates into Ether flows, I don't know, but I think in this type of market, all you need is narrative flows, and those will continue to come. And then obviously Bitcoin for the long term, kind of forget about it, and let it
all-time high. No one owns it. I love that.
I own it. I just don't even it's like locked away. It's locked away.
It feels like that. Like I've been saying for a while that I thought Bitcoin was the trade for September, and then it was kind of BNB. But wow, we are literally at all-time highs basically here, right? This is us touching it. We break through here.
Every time I come on, we have a really good week for Bitcoin.
Oh, it's amazing, man. Right.
Come more often.
Let's go to the questions. I'll just bring up the questions now. Okay, first question is Raul here? That marks the top few. Raul isn't here. Yeah, he isn't. We have Sergito, which means we're going a lot higher, ladies and gentlemen. We are going 150K the next couple of weeks. Next, what do you guys think about having with Plasma this week? So Plasma is the kind of neobank chain. They're going to have like a debit card, an app that is backed by the guys at Tether, and it kind of came. It had a very, very active pre-market trading. But it kind of went pre-market from trading in like the high single digits FDV, like 8 to 10, up to I think 17, and has come right the way back to 8, and everyone's calling foul, saying something's gone wrong. I think that it's a bit of, I don't know if there's been anything bad internally there, and you can never really tell if like there's been insiders dumping. The chart doesn't look that healthy. What I would say is that a lot of the incentives to put your funds on XPL were actual incentive based. So they would say, look, you're going to get 10% or like sometimes even like 15 to 20% yield in this protocol on Plasma, but the majority of the yield was coming from Plasma. So this is like OG DeFi farming. Like people are like, well, this is just incentive based farming. And it suddenly seemed a little bit hollow. And a lot of the other parts of what they announced just don't really feel like they're fully fleshed out, like the app, the debit card. So for now, it's just stablecoin farming, but the reward is basically XPL, the Plasma L1 asset. So there's a lot of people just selling that as they are getting rewarded in it. And I do think that that this has some decent backing. It has also come out that that Tether's backed a few of these sort of chains, so this may not be the only one that they're going to be promoting. But this caught a lot of people off guard. I think Anson was saying he was going to go long this short ETH at the start of this week, and that trade has not gone that well. So there's a lot of dunking on that take on the timeline. Did you have a look at this at all?
I did. It reminded me of Pool 2, exactly what you were talking about. Yeah, when you pay people with the token, they're going to sell the token to farm, to capture that yield that was promised. I think also people like, what's 2 weeks old? Like it's, everybody's so neurotic sometimes when things move like this. I don't have a position. I don't plan on having a position. I think a fund that I'm investing in has a big position, so that's my synthetic position. But yeah, I agree with from what I read with your assessment.
It was interesting in Singapore. I met a few of the firms kind of pitching this sort of concept. One of which was World Liberty Financial, which is the Trump-backed entity. And my view around this is it all depends on the licenses they can get to operate in local jurisdictions, and probably the partnerships they can actually do with DeFi that allow some of this DeFi stuff to still happen at arm's length. And I actually do think it's not going to be as easy as, we're just going to have to set up a neobank which allows you to operate in every single country, and we're going to have a debit card and all this sort of stuff. I actually think that these, the more like politically aligned institutions might have a better shot of this. I do think it takes a long time to get certain licenses to do things in different countries. MoonPay know that. They've taken multiple years to build all those up. I'm sure Fireblocks is kind of the same as well. And my gut is this neobank concept there might be a few like gigantic losses like this where it realized that like they can't really do anything. Like you can't buy a house using the funds on them. You can't.
Well, you need distribution, right? Like, how are you going to get people to download the app to open an account? Like, that is very, very, very hard. And so I think that's probably something that a lot of people are not thinking about. You might have a really good product, but if you have no distribution, it just becomes challenging. And people are so ingrained in their ways that, like, for example, you go to Germany, people still mostly use cash, where it's so easy to use Apple Pay everywhere else, right? Even in the US, you didn't have chipped cards like you did in Europe for like 4 or 5 years. And that's stuff that's already in people's wallets. So to really get somebody to change behavior, to move money around, look at like Gemini's credit card. They had a really nice Bitcoin reward, like crypto rewards credit card. I think now it's fully Bitcoin. I remember having it, and it was paying me, instead of miles and points, I was getting Bitcoin, and it was amazing. And you could switch to crypto. And then a lot of my friends that are in crypto, I asked them, like, do you have it? They're like, no. Why? Oh, because I like my, United Plus or like my Amex. And so having distribution and being able to change people's behaviors is going to be the biggest challenge. Unless you're solving a big problem. I don't think people have an issue with Venmo or PayPal today, or their banks where they're already getting their paychecks into. Like, I still bank with a particular bank because I've been getting my paycheck there forever, and all my accounts are there. So it's like I would need a big incentive to change my own personal behavior. And I think most people probably feel the same way. And then you add on, like, it's crypto, is it secure, is it this and that? And it's a little bit more complicated than just, we have this slick protocol or slick app, or we're paying people 10% yield. Okay. Yeah. So for me, those will be the biggest risks. I wouldn't personally take a position there unless I was trying to like trade something very technically.
My producer is saying that we are seconds away from a Bitcoin all-time high. I don't even know what it was, but it's definitely in and around this sort of area. Like we are very, very close to it right now. Final question was, I'd love to get your thoughts on TradFi bidding on some of these infra plays, in particular oracles and interoperability plays, Link, Pith, Wormhole, Zeus, Ica. I've liked Link in the past, but mainly because it felt like an XRP style play, of this like diehard
Link Marines. Let's go.
Yeah, the Link Marines that like, and I still have Link, but it's kind of been in this like consolidation period. I think if I like any of them, it's those. If you look beyond that, a lot of DeFi doesn't make that much money. These oracles don't make that much money. Link even turned on a buyback, and it's not high. I'll say that. So, and that's the biggest player out there. So if you're really going to go on like the multiples, like the revenue multiple sort of stuff, I think focus on trading bots and perp trap platforms or other things where people lose money pretty regularly. These businesses feel a little bit too. They have revenue multiples almost like traditional TradFi companies, or they make revenue like by subscriptions and stuff like that. They just don't make enough to kind of go crazy. But Link, I'm not ruling out the idea that one day Link will just like triple.
I think having been in the industry and not speaking specifically about any of these because I don't have information, but just the time that I spent at Fireblocks, and even now with like IP in like the Web3 side of the world, a lot of the big partnerships and things that you see are very incentivized by the smaller player. And so even if you see like, oh, this big TradFi institution is doing this, or this big retail player is using this particular IP, their partners. No, there's usually some sort of financial arrangement where the bigger player is getting either a boatload of tokens or cash or a much higher percentage of the revenue split, which makes sense, right? Like if you're the bigger player, you bring in value, you get paid for it. But unfortunately, a lot of the times the way this is disclosed is just not in the way that really reflects what's happening behind the scenes. So yeah, I think you got to find your edge, right? If your edge is really crypto infra, then really understand the technicals and all that stuff. If it's not that, I think that's a little bit easier trades, like narrative trades, especially for the people that like to rotate and float around. That will be my take on this.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It doesn't really have the narrative with it right now. It felt like right now the strongest narratives are the revenue meta, of which there's various different ones around that. Perp dexes, pump fund, kind of take the win. BNB coming back, I feel like, as just like a generally CZ coming back. This is alongside like the ETH.
I'll tell you what the big meta is going to be here for Q4. It's going to be the Meebits meta.
Here we go. Meebits back. Token strategy taking us to the moon.
Let's go.
That's been the other one. Okay, look, Sergito, it's also awesome having you on as always. I know a lot of the Real Vision viewers love having you on. I've known you for a long, long time. We will hopefully have you on again in the next.
Whenever you want, I'm always here.
Yeah, awesome, man. Great to see you. We'll be back again next week at the usual time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time. Have a great weekend, everyone. Let's hit all-time high very soon.
Binance is the world's #1 crypto exchange. Over 275 million users already trust their world-class security. Binance makes starting crypto as simple as it should be. Whether learning about crypto on Binance Academy or browsing hundreds of assets and viewing your newly created portfolio in a clear, easy-to-track dashboard, Binance helps you go at your own pace. For the hardcore traders, Binance Pro opens industry-leading services for trading professionals with fully bespoke trading products, along with a suite of white-glove services for VIP and institutional clients. Need support? 24/7 customer service is on hand whenever you need it. And with some of the lowest fees and deepest liquidity in the market, it's no surprise over 285 million users trust Binance for everything crypto. Download Binance today and get started in minutes. Binance is not available in certain countries, including the US. Check its terms for more.